All right, I guess we're live. Hey everyone, welcome to the Garret Schuelke podcast. I am, as always, Garret Schuelke, the host of this thing that I named it after myself.
Very humble.
Very narcissistic.
Yeah. I at least came up with a pseudonym.
So technically mine is a pseudonym that sounds pretty much like my real name.
Exactly like your legal name. Yeah, that's really clever. That's like,
I know.
That's fifth level stuff.
I literally thought of it back my last month or so of high school.
Yeah.
When I was like, okay, I'm about to graduate. I gotta take this writing stuff seriously. I should go by a pseudonym because my folks have expressed some disdain for whenever I would express political opinions or try and write the paper.
Yeah.
They're like, you can't use your real name because they'll connect it to us. Then we'll have some whack job trying to get at us for it. Like, okay, I'll think of something else.
See, my dad, it's funny, my dad's fairly conservative, but he's always been very tolerant about my radical political views. Like, I could probably come home tomorrow and be like, well, actually, I'm a communist now, Dad. And he'd be like, well, what? Why'd you do that? Are you still pro-gun? I'm like, of course. Workers need guns. And okay, I'm okay with that. What's the Socialist Rifle Association you're talking about? It's kind of my dad's political ideology kind of stops and starts the gun control. So
Actually,
tangent there.
Zach, dude, you might want to turn it back on. It's getting way too muggy up in here.
Yeah. It's a hot one, ladies and gentlemen. This is Michigan summer. It's either a swamp or a tundra.
It's nearly the end, sadly. So let's celebrate with this podcast. Who I happen to have on today is Andy Argo.
Hello.
Thank you for coming on. Andy Argo is a activist, radio host, musician, and someone I actually consider a very good friend of mine. We had the joy of living together.
An energetic dancer. Some people call me a space cowboy. No.
Wow.
Sorry.
Yep. So more specifically, he is the host of the Hoodrat Strategist Radio Program, which you can find on Wider Wednesdays from 4 to 6, I believe.
5 to 7.
5 to 7.
We also have a Facebook page. Unfortunately, that's a whole discussion in there. It's like,
we'll all get to that.
Yeah, and then we also have a YouTube page. You can find all of our episodes on there.
Except that one that got banned.
Except the one that got banned by Russia. And also, I haven't uploaded this week's episode because the computer in the studio was broken. I had to record the whole thing off my phone, so I kind of want to play around with that. Eventually, I'll put it up. But that's it was interesting. We talked about like a lot of the homelessness issues that have been popping up around town, and then trying to think what else.
Actually, let's get into that in a sec. But first of all, how are you doing, my good friend?
Oh, well, things are going pretty well. On a personal level, we were very irritated. I basically got gentrified out of... Can I swear on this?
Oh, yeah, totally.
Okay.
To quote some alt-right douchebag, this is a free speech zone.
Oh, it's free speech zone. Well, we got gentrified out of our fucking house.
This is the... As long as I've known you, this is like the third house you've lived in. I believe it's called Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, yep. Mm-hmm. And if you're unfamiliar with it, so Kalamazoo has it's pretty strong like kind of DIT culture. A lot of houses will host like underground shows and art events and that stuff. And I've been doing that for a while now. Actually, going back to when me and Garret were living in Kalamazoo at a place called the Black Lodge.
Even farther than that, actually, at Argo House.
Man, that's some ancient history. Surprisingly, those shows work pretty well, and even though it was in the Edison neighborhood, which is not the traditional space for a lot of those types of shows.
That's actually that would be like the second time I think I really hung out with you. Mm-hmm. See, I always do this on my shows. I say how I met someone.
Oh, okay.
This is how I remember meeting you. Please dispute if you feel like it.
Oh, okay.
But it was during the emergency manager protest in Lansing.
Yeah, that's true. Mm-hmm.
And we were down there. Me and some other people part group. We're all masked up. Mm-hmm. And you came around, and also with a group of people from Kalamazoo. Mm-hmm. You all started hanging out and talking. I forget what the whole conversation was, but I believe you got very excited saying like, "I am so glad that young people of Kalamazoo are taking action today."
Yeah.
And then we went inside, and we weren't allowed to wear masks or bring in signs. But you happened to have a notebook.
I did.
And you wrote, "I have a sign," and was holding that up the entire time in there.
I got really salty, and as a matter of fact, I was even like handing out notebook paper to people. It's like, yeah, you got a pen? All right, write something down. I was very irritated about that. It's just like, can't bring signs into the building. What am I gonna like boomerang a sign at one of the politicians? You're gonna get a paper cut. This isn't Riccio, okay? That's not how violence works in the real world. All right, you can't hurt anybody with
that was a great
cardboard
movie.
sign. Yes, it was.
Yeah, I of course like that because I like find humor in everything, including my political action.
Mm-hmm.
Very jello Biafra in that way.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, the guy I was hanging out with did not appreciate it. I think maybe he was partially salty, and of course he was just taking it too seriously.
Yeah.
He's like, "God, did you see that guy with that fucking paper?"
Oh yeah.
No, I have a sign. Fuck off, fucking hipster.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the first time I met you, Andy Argo, as I recall.
Mm-hmm.
If we met beforehand, it was probably just some random show or something.
Probably, yeah.
And then that's actually how I later on when I went to a few shows at Argo House. Mm-hmm. That's actually how I got to move in with you at Black Lodge after,
I remember that.
because I was fucking hammered.
Yeah.
And I just mentioned that when you and I were chatting, like, yeah, my lease at Fletcher Collective is almost done. I need to find a new place to live.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, really? Here, let me tell you about this new place we're moving in. Like, oh, fuck yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God. Great decision, though.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. It was a fun place. I learned a lot of important lessons, like don't literally have a show every week.
Yeah.
It'll turn into chaos.
Yeah.
And stress you the fuck out.
Wow.
Yeah.
We could go on, but yeah, that's how I first met you. Mm-hmm. And now we got that waxing fantastic stuff out of the way. Yeah, you've had actually quite a week here in Kalamazoo in terms of political activism. Tell me, what's been going on exactly downtown in relation to Bronson Park?
Okay, so, and it's important, I think people really understand how it's still going on. Like, there's been some articles in Live, and we were able to postpone or strike down the actual ordinances. But let me backtrack before I get ahead of myself. So last week, and I actually covered it on my last radio show, it was about Tuesday of last week. So a Reddit user posted about these proposed changes to park ordinances. And, this is something that wasn't quite on my radar, and frankly, whoever posted that deserves a big thank you for really bringing this to the whole community's attention.
Was this a Kalamazoo Reddit?
Yeah. We still don't know who posted it. They've chosen to remain anonymous. I have a few theories, but
yeah, we won't air them here.
No. So they posted that, and essentially the proposed changes. There are a couple of key things in there. Some of them are a little more understandable, like, oh, no vaping in the park. Okay, that's fine. But some of they reduced the number of allowable sleeping hours to 2 hours at a time. This would be written in our city ordinance law. They changed the hours that it is permissible to sleep in Bronson Park. So originally, you could sleep in Bronson Park from 7 a.m. to about 10 at night. And keep in mind, this is just in the legal language. A lot of what happens in Bronson Park I would call selective enforcement. So there will be people sleeping in the park at times that is technically illegal, but the cops aren't going to enforce that unless you're actively being a problem.
Well, that's one thing I was wondering, because I kept up on it. I was like, okay, are they just going to have a cop or two stationed there the entire time, or during these specific hours? How would they enforce that?
I mean, the key thing is, they wanted to expand power from not just cops, but also city park officials would be able to give out these citations and essentially have, arresting power over folks. And I want to make it clear, just to, kind of lay it all out, again, it would turn sleeping in the park during these hours into a misdemeanor, punishable by $500 or 90 days in jail. So, these folks who essentially, I mean, part of the reason they're sleeping in the park, they don't have money, so they're going to go.
Obviously, if you can sleep in the park, you can afford to pay the city $500.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Other things that specifically target the homeless population, it's making a misdemeanor to clean your clothes using any of the park's facilities. So, even washing out your water bottle or any of your personal belongings. Also turns into a misdemeanor to carry, the language is really fuzzy around this too, and that's part of the problem. Is it was very vague, so you could enforce this essentially at will.
You can literally apply it to anything. Pretty much.
And it basically would have turned it into a misty to have large camping style belongings with you, which
just carrying them.
Just carrying.
Not laying them down or using them. Just having them.
Exactly. And if you
what?
And part of the problem is you talk to any of the homeless folks who live in Kalamazoo, they're the main downtown resource for people to sleep at night is the Kalamazoo Gospel Mission. And I'm not even going to get into it, but the Gospel Mission, from everybody I've talked to who actually stayed there, is pretty atrocious conditions. We're talking black mold, people get sick there.
Bed bugs.
Some of the staff, I've been told, is very much guilty of either sexual harassment or just being generally unkind to the people who go there. Plus, they're a religious institution, so they can and do at will discriminate against the LGBTQ population, and essentially anybody who's not willing to embrace the Lord and Savior in their heart, they can throw out onto the damn street.
Pretty much like the Salvation Army.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, okay, going back to, I kind of lost where your question was. I'm sorry.
Okay, so now we heard about what it's about. What was done to combat it?
Okay, so when we caught wind of it, particularly hats off to Chris Wamoff. He's a kick-ass activist in Kalamazoo. If you haven't heard of him, he got arrested a few years ago for going into the Enbridge oil pipeline with a skateboard.
Oh, yes.
And that was, when we had that big oil spill a few years back here in Kalamazoo. At the time, it was the largest inland oil spill in history. That might have gotten topped since then.
Kalamazoo River?
Yeah, the Kalamazoo River, yeah. And he's been he was at Occupy during the original 2010 11
protest. He's still keeping that going with Occupy Kalamazoo.
Yeah, and actually that's what he did. That he organized under that umbrella, and Occupy hasn't actually really been super active in Kalamazoo since the original Occupy protest. They've done things here and there. But he decided to organize under that banner because it's very it's very open. It's not driven by any one local activist org or nonprofit, and it allowed there was legal precedence because several years ago it was the city attorney, who's still our current city attorney, Clyde Robinson, basically determined sleeping on the city sidewalks, if it's part of a protest, is legally permissible. So, knowing that precedent, he organized with a few other folks, Jamie, I can't remember his last name, a few other people in the homeless community stepped up to really help forefront of organizing this. And for several days they had an encampment right on the steps of City Hall. They had tents, futons, sleeping bags, etc. A lot of people have. I've gotten a few thanks and stuff on Facebook for the limited stuff that I've done, and Chris has really been there every single day doing a lot of stuff.
Oh yeah, he's literally sacrificed his health for it.
Oh yeah. But I will say, the lion's share of the credit, you got to give it to the homeless folks themselves, because they're the ones who are out there every day talking to folks as they walk by, talking about the issues of homelessness, talking about when they're in danger of these ordinances being passed, talking to people every day about what was going on. They were the ones that mobilized the community to really have empathy and stand with them. So you give them the lion's share of the credit, and also, if you're listening to this encampment is still going on. It's down at the park. They still need supplies. Water is always needed. They're looking for books, any blankets, sleeping bags, and just food, of course. So anything you can really think to help them out with. The protest camp is still going, and I wanted to. We'll definitely put a fine point on that. So let me wrap up with the initial protest action. So the night of the vote, that was like last Monday.
Yeah, I was about to say, what was that night like?
Okay.
Like, what was the atmosphere at the meeting?
So I go to these meetings quite a bit. Usually when there's city commission meetings. Usually particularly when there's a very controversial item on the docket. So, I've been there talking about the Kalamazoo Foundation for Excellence and that racist statue that we got removed. That was a win. What was interesting to me is I think initially. It was the city attorney and the city manager who really came up with a lot of these ordinance changes. And you can definitely tell a lot of the language of the ordinances, it changes from permission of the city to permission of the city manager. It's really weird. It gives the city manager an inordinate amount of power. And, they defended it by saying, we're decriminalizing, some of these. And that's just about out and out lie because, they were decriminalizing a few of the ordinances while creating a whole bunch of new misdemeanors. But
wait, so what exactly were they decriminalizing?
Well, they're basically turning and I can't remember a lot of the specific ones. Some of the things that you could get a misdemeanor for in the park, they were turning into civil infractions. So you get a ticket.
That's better.
Like littering and stuff. Yeah, exactly. I think the city and particularly activists really caught the city commission off guard. There were 40 people. It lasted it was a 4-hour meeting, person after person coming up to the podium to talk about not only just how bad these ordinances would be, but some of the key points is just I know exactly who probably talked into the city manager's ear about this stuff. It's a certain class of people in the city. It's the kind of wealthy, liberal, philanthropic class who, they do not like coming downtown and seeing homelessness. So their idea to combat it is to make it invisible, to make them go away. One of the things I said when I was up at that podium, though, is it's been framed as a safety issue. And one, as Pastor Nathan said during his comments, homeless people statistically commit less crimes than the general population. And two, you're trading the hypothetical safety of anybody else in Kalamazoo with the legitimate and concrete safety of these homeless folks. The reason a lot of them sleep down at the park is for their own safety, is because it's a highly visible area. If they're having to sleep in an aqueduct or under a bridge somewhere, it's so much easier for them to get assaulted or
even in another park that's not as visible.
Yeah.
Or perhaps in a part of town that's not as safe.
Yeah, and it's interesting because they, a few of the managers brought up it's a little different this year. It's there's been some new people. They've been causing more ruckus, committing more crimes.
Oh, come on.
Well, the thing is, you talk to some of the homeless folks, and they will have the same issues and complaints. And they say, we've been trying to work with public safety on these issues. And what's interesting to me is, instead of actually working with the homeless population to deal with some of these bad actors, they want, the city manager, city attorney, their initial thought was let's basically just do this collective punishment to drive them out of the parks. And, make it more comfortable for, there was one person, there's literally one person who showed up at the meeting to speak for the ordinances.
Oh, I think I heard this from our mutual friend.
Yeah.
They call it the jogger.
The jogger, yeah. Yeah. And that's what she said. It's her complaint didn't have anything to do with safety. It was I don't like the idea of when I'm jogging and I see, people who are probably either hungover or on drugs. And I don't like my daughter seeing that, blah, 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 blah. And see, that's exactly what it is. It's it's not about safety. They don't want to see these people.
So basically,
it makes them uncomfortable.
So basically, these homeless people are bumming me out when I'm doing my morning jog.
Oh, it's such a bummer.
Can you please arrest them?
Yeah, and to the extent of her sympathy, it's you should do more for the homeless so that I don't have to see them when I'm out. And I have a recommendation. If you got a kid and you see a depressing tableau of a homeless couple that's down on their luck, that's when you have a lecture with your child about the disastrous effects of capitalism.
there's-
Use that as a teaching moment.
There's
all right?
always
And I
one.
think
There's always one of these people at a city meeting where they make it overly personal for their reason.
Oh, yeah.
Very selfish. Very condescending.
Very selfish, yeah. And it's like later on, there's this woman who's like crying at the podium about like fucking being raped in the park and like not being able to stay at the gospel mission, like getting kicked out. Like she talked about how like the gospel mission kicked her out too early in the morning to like go to McDonald's, and without being able to go in the park, she was literally just sobbing at the podium, asking like, "Where do I go? Where do I go?" And you know, public pressure can work in a really good way. Like I said, like the city commission, and I've never seen them do this. They chose not to even vote for it. Like the motion died right there. Now, as my friend Chris Walmer pointed out, because they could always bring it back up and vote on it again.
Yeah, I'm about to say, what are the pros and cons of them just not voting?
Yeah.
On it?
They could potentially do an action meeting where they discuss this further, without it being like a public city commission meeting. Granted, all of those meetings are open to the public. What I mean by that is like it wouldn't be, kind of published and advertised and stuff. So keep in mind, this is a short-term win, but the people who wanted this to happen are very rich and very powerful. Like these are the same people who, got like the Excellence Foundation through the same interests that essentially, control the city. So, they're gonna be trying this again, but at the same time, I really gotta tip my hat to all the homeless activists, because not only have they defeated these horrible like ordinance changes, they're also starting to push their agenda in an extremely visible way. I think for the first time, there's a lot of people in the city who are actually starting to listen to the homeless population about what they want and what they need.
Yeah, so what are like the main points?
Their main demands, something that came up a lot, they want Commissioner Anderson to no longer be on the housing board. He said a lot of really problematic shit about the homeless. In the recent article that was about this ordinance change, he basically did that whole line about like, well, self-responsibility, and if the homeless folks in Kalamazoo, really want to, kind of that lift themselves up by their bootstraps bullshit talk, and also kind of misrepresented the amount of resources homeless folks actually have in this town. He said, oh, there's always places for them to go. If you actually talk to any of the homeless folks in town, then you will know that is certainly not the case.
Well, there's places they can go. It doesn't mean they can stay there, though.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm looking up some of the other demands here. I think like another really central one is to have a town hall with the actual homeless population. It was amazing to me. It's like none of the city officials actually wanted to talk to the homeless population before trying to get these ordinances passed.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. I haven't been to a city commission meeting in Kalamazoo, Grand Rapids, or anywhere in ages. I mean, who was allowed to go up? I guess besides you and jogging woman. Like,
yeah.
Well, was there anyone who was homeless, like known to be homeless, or looked particularly homeless?
Well, yeah, exactly. Like, that was one of the really different things about the city commission meeting. Is like I'd say at least like a third, maybe a fourth of the people who came up to speak. And keep in mind, about 40 people showed up to do citizens' comments. Yeah, a substantial number of them were actual homeless folks. And keep in mind, like we had that encampment right out in front of City Hall. So, a lot of them came up to talk, and like the encampment was there. There were tons of homeless folks there during the meeting, and I'll tip to my hat, like a few of the city commissioners afterward came down and actually started like talk to them, like Eric Cunningham. I know Shannon Sykes has also really been on the right side of this issue. I didn't stick around long enough, but I guess she essentially tore the rest of the commission a new asshole.
Very quickly, what's his name? Is Don Cooney still on there?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, he is?
Yeah, Don Cooney's still in part of the city government.
What's his view?
Oh, Don is also, I'd say, on the right side of this issue. Like he's the other day I went and sat in on a meeting of SBK, which is Prosperity Kalamazoo. Can't remember what the S stands for. It's basically like a working group of local activists, business people, etc. talk about like local issues in the city, and he's part of that board. And at the end of the meeting, the mayor is part of that board too.
Yeah.
And I basically said, it's like, there's this encampment right down at the bottom of the stairs. A lot of the homeless folks here feel like they're not being listened to, and you should really like come down and talk to them. And Don was the only one who actually did. So I got to give credit where credit is due. He was definitely on the right side of this. And,
how about Hopewell, Mayor Hopewell?
Hopewell.
Yeah. What's? Oh yeah, I can tell you're very excited to talk about his view on this.
Okay, look. So the thing about Bobby, he's. I don't know if there's like a polite way to put this, but he's part of the capitalist class. He reps them super hard. Now I don't know. I can't say behind the scenes if he had a view on this. I do know until the community's outrage at the potential passing of these ordinances was brought to his attention, he seemed to be perfectly fine with it. And in fact, it wasn't until, those public comments, they're basically like publicly shaming the city government for even considering these ordinances. He actually had a protracted break near, let's say, the last quarter of the citizens' comments. And my guess is like what he did is he got the commissioners together. It's like, and basically there's talks like, we fucked up. We did not know how much the public was going to be behind this, and basically talked to them about deciding not to bring it to a vote. Because like, make no mistake, Bobby was right there when we're talking about like the Foundation for Excellence. He was right there at the table, helping come up with it, helping it get passed, being a proponent for it, when at the time we had a progressive income tax on the table. Now, I could speak for hours about the Foundation for Excellence, but the best way I can summarize it is the rich of the city decided instead of paying income taxes, they would essentially buy the city. How would they buy the city? They would do it by making a deal where they would no longer have to pay income taxes, but they would basically subsidize the city's budget.
There you go.
Yeah, and
just have the oligarchs literally run everything.
Yeah, and they have a controlling stake over it too. The originally way they pitched it is like, oh, we'll give you the money, but we're not going to touch it or tell you what to do with it. And then
until we actually tell you what to do with it.
Yeah. Well, they actually changed some of the language in there to they struck down the ban on restricted gifts, and what that basically means is originally, if you wanted to donate money to the Foundation for Excellence for a specific project, that originally wasn't allowed, because the idea was like, you give us money and then we, the people, decide what to do with it. They struck that down, so now if somebody wants to donate money to the foundation and say, I want it used for this specific purpose, then it's tied to that specific purpose. And, not to get all like conspiratorial here, but that, just under the legal language, it basically allows the donor class of the city to control that foundation for however they see fit.
Whoa, Alex Jones, slow down.
And they also want to turn the frogs gay. Back to like the mayor's relationship with that is, look, Bobby said like this is going to be his last term, and
really,
yeah,
like how long has he been in office?
He's the longest running mayor in the history of Kalamazoo, and he's seen opposition. Like Chris Wamoff did a kind of a protest candidacy against him in the last.
Yeah, I do remember that too.
Yeah,
was it like write-in?
Yeah, it was a write-in thing. But we need something different, because like this city, like a lot of American cities, but this city it's socially liberal but economically Reagan. And frankly, with that, if they passed that homeless thing, it would be economically Trump, because it not only is it super conservative Friedman economics, but it's also just outright cruel. But
he did have one person. I don't know if she was on city council or not, but who was a particularly big Trump fan around here.
Mary Balkamas.
Yeah.
Mary.
Yeah, had her billboard vandalized and complained about free speech.
Yeah. That's a really interesting thing, because when we talk about, one of the things that got brought up at the meeting is like, we've got these resources. We've got this excellent foundation. And we've also got a bunch of empty houses in Kalamazoo. So, somewhere in there, providing free housing or affordable housing. Although I'm a socialist, so I'm like housing should be a fucking right. But one of the hitches to that is who owns a lot of those properties? Well, that's the Kalamazoo Land Bank, who operates the land bank. So when we're talking about doing kind of a more socialistic idea of providing the homeless with all these free fucking houses that we have around here. We've got like the local designated Trumpster in charge of all of those properties. So, it's either because even if you got her out as county treasurer, she would still own the land bank. So that's probably the biggest stumbling block to really getting housing reform in the city. It's not even the billionaire class who runs shit. Because I think we've proven with this, particularly with this fight, that if you get enough negative public opinion arrayed against you, we can actually get some stuff to at least defend against some of this shit.
Well, in Grand Rapids, we got our own oligarchs. The Myers family, the Van Andels,
the DeVosses.
And the DeVosses. Oh, yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's always fun whenever Betsy comes to town. She gets protested so fucking hard.
Hometown hero.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Oh.
I actually, when I was at a poetry reading in Ohio, someone brought that up. I had to explain to them, like, listen, not all of us in Grand Rapids worship Betsy. Seriously.
Yeah.
Granted, I kind of got into an argument with him beforehand, so he was kind of slinging that at me.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
No, that's classic.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, actually beforehand, we knew long ago we shouldn't have trusted Hopewell, especially after he told you to move your shitty van.
Let's tell this story, yeah.
Yeah, true story that's happening here, folks.
So when I was my last year. It was my last year of college going to Western, and I was living in the Edison neighborhood at the time. Actually, the house I grew up in, Argo House.
Argo House,
we were talking about earlier, and I would park my car on not Maple Street, Hillcrest Street.
It was a van, right?
No, it was my shitty old 94 Nissan Maxima.
Oh, shit. I remember you with the van.
Yeah. I did have the van for a while, but no, this was when I had the 94 Nissan Maxima with loud fucking muffler problems and all that. So it was definitely, a beat-up car. So I would park there every day to go to school. Excuse me. And one day, when I get done with classes, I saw a note on my car, and it just said, "Quit parking your shitty car on my street. Love, Mayor Hopewell." And it's like, I don't know if he thought I would just be like, "Oh, the mayor. Oh dear, I'm upsetting the mayor."
See, I've kind of had some skepticism there because, first of all, just the message itself. Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, that's very aggressive for a public official.
It really is.
And two, you're just going to sign it Mayor Hopewell, not Bobby Hopewell.
See, it's part of the reason I haven't been super public with about it, because I have to do some FOIA requests. I got to find out did Bobby actually live on Hillcrest Road? I'm not sure. So
he comes up with all these documents. Yeah. It's like, wait a minute, I remember that guy at the meeting. Yeah. I told him to get his shit car off my road once. Yep.
I will say, long story short, so, knowing me, I just park there even more often. And I left a note on my car talking was like, I am a registered voter in the city of Kalamazoo. You really shouldn't use this language, this is a public street. And then he wrote me another letter being a lot.
Really?
Yeah.
Dude.
Put me another note on my car, and this time he decided to be polite and use political speech, and it's like, I would just sincerely appreciate as a neighbor if you. And he offered me alternative places to park, and so I decided, okay, after he wrote back and decided to be nice, it's like, okay, I'll park on Maple Street from now on, which is funny because same exact neighborhood, part of the neighborhood, but people knew me on that street. I had a few parents of people I went to high school with, and I actually parked in their driveway a few times.
Well, you got it off the street time. Right?
I did. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh boy. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Well, I guess next time we want to protest the mayor, let's find his house and just everybody with a shit-ass car just go park outside.
There you go. That is direct. That's a direct action we can all get behind.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, and Andy, as I said earlier, you are the host of the Hoodrat Strategist Radio Program.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, how do I segue into this?
Are you going to ask just, like, why do I do the show, or, like, what the show is like? Or, I mean, you know, we can talk about that.
We can go a lot of ways into this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so explain to us, what is the program about?
Okay, so the Hoodrat Strategist Radio Program, so I do it every week, and, you know, it's on Wider, which is our local
89.1
Yep.
WIDR, your source for Radio Revolution.
Yeah, and it's basically our local political talk show, and you know it's got a pretty broad format. Although generally how it follows is like, you know, we have 3 consistent hosts. It's me and my friends Lawrence and Nora, and it's interesting because like it makes it a multi-tendency show. Because like I'm an anarcho-socialist. Lawrence is a democratic socialist, and he talks about DSA and a lot of like progressive issues. A lot of, you know, brings up a lot of Young Turk stuff. And then Nora, who recently she told me she's a state socialist. And I'm like, so like a tanky, but she also like is. I think she's like a secret tanky. So because most of the time she's super polite and really talks about like progressive issues. And then one of these days we're just gonna see her going down Kalamazoo Avenue with like a pink Hello Kitty tank, just being like,
what the fuck?
Dictatorship of the proletariat.
What the fuck is a tanky? Anyway? I've never found like a real definition for it. Just people just leftists use it to bash.
Yeah, you have to leftists use it to bash each other.
We love bashing each other.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's why we're so successful.
You know, and you know, frankly, you know, Tanky's gonna tank. Let tankies do that. But what it actually really like boils down to is just it's a description of people who talk about state communism or state socialism, where there is
a lot of like Soviet era politics.
Yeah, and if you want to get broader, like kind of like more authoritarian style leftism, and by the way, you know, I encourage everybody, like, you know, I have learned a hell of a lot in the last 2 years from people who I guess you would describe as a tanky or whatever. Don't close yourself off to that, because you learn a lot about history and political theory. You know, there's a particular friend of mine on Facebook who's led me down, you know, particular rabbit holes that I probably never would have discovered on my own, and you know, they do describe themselves as more kind of authoritarian and communistic, but yeah, you know, don't dismiss people just because they might pipe up and be like, you know, actually, you know, North Korea is not nearly as bad as propagandists talk about.
I did get into an argument with a guy like a couple months ago about that. Mm-hmm. His whole thing was that everything that's supposedly bad would happen in North Korea, from, you know, slave labor camps to starvation. Yeah. All fake news. Fake news. And the stuff, and of course, like the relatives or political figures that Kim Jong-un or his father or his grandfather have all killed. Mm-hmm. All actors.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you know, they're still alive.
Yeah.
Which, since we were getting to a heated argument, mm-hmm. especially around that point, because Zach and I talked about this in our last podcast. Mm-hmm. On conspiracy theories, because we're both big fans of them.
Oh yeah.
I particularly dislike the crisis actors, especially
that one.
Especially since Sandy Hook, because it's just such bullshit, and it's mean spirited.
Yeah.
That's one way to put about it. But yeah, me and this guy got into a particular heated argument, and you know, it's like, well, you know, his relatives are still around. You can still see them walking. Yeah. I'm like, dude, I know that they're Asian, and you probably think they all look the same because they're white, but they're not crisis actors, I assure you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he probably blocked me after that comment.
I mean, the two things you got to keep in mind with that, and like the left, and the right, both of them are kind of guilty of this. It's like, always remember Occam's razor, which is, you know, the simplest explanation is usually the right one. And you know, we do got to be aware, like, you know, conspiracy theorist was something that like the CIA really pushed in a lot of like their Mockingbird style projects. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, Operation Mockingbird, during the 50s and 60s was basically the CIA planted a lot of their people in national news media to kind of curb the narrative in a certain way.
Oh yeah, they still do that.
Oh yeah, they still do that. And keep in mind, I mean, just look at real American history is fundamentally crazier than most conspiracy theories that you'll hear. Like, the CIA legitimately was plotting to bomb Miami as a false flag and blame it on Cuba. So keep in mind, like, always be conscientious of the fact that, like, there is some legitimately shitty stuff going on in our government. But, don't fall into the trap of relying on a lot of conjecture and shit that doesn't have direct evidence. I think a good example of that would probably be, not only like kind of QAnon.
Oh, yes. President Trump, between his tweeting and McDonald's and hang out with Putin, he's taking the time to directly speak to these people on Reddit and 4chan to tell the truth.
If you mind me,
and he's still alive too, by the way. Somehow he hasn't been killed.
I mean, if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to talk about that a little bit.
Oh God!
Since the mainstream media has picked it up, they haven't really covered it with the. There's some nuance in here.
Well, I guess let's talk about that. But to finish up my R point, you said not to doubt people due to their views.
Yeah.
Listen, I believe you on that. I would look more towards like their personality or how they treat others.
Unless they're a Nazi.
Fuck them. You got punch them immediately.
Yeah, exactly. That's too much for the taller left.
Oh jeez. Anyway, QAnon, which is clearly what Trump's taking his time to do out of his busy day.
The actual idea of it is that there's somebody in the Trump administration who is anonymous, and they're they're posting these. And, okay, here's the oddest thing to me is like he never imagine your news source doesn't just give you information; they make you solve riddles first, and kind
of like the Riddler in a way.
Yeah, and and the people who actually follow QAnon would probably take umbrage at that description. They think of him or it more as like Deep Throat or something, but like he's always talking about leaving out breadcrumbs and you research this thing and that thing.
If you listen closely to the speeches, you'll hear like an inflection in his voice. It indicates something.
And, the problem with it is sometimes QAnon gets stuff right. You look at it and then it points to, like, legitimate things that are actually happening behind the scenes. Like, when we found out our favorite Smallville actress was actually running a crazy sex cult.
Dude, that is so sad. I fucking love Smallville.
Yeah. But, like,
even the later seasons.
Yeah. They were kind of early. They found out that story early, and a lot of other similar related news stories to kind of. They talk about like Hollywood pedophilia and sex trafficking a lot.
Yeah, but when I first really heard of it, it pretty much just seemed to me like a right-wing ripoff of Anonymous, pretty much.
And I mean that's part of it. But a lot of like people who supported Bernie or who are left-wing also ascribe to it too.
There's also left-wing Bernie supporters who voted for Trump too.
Exactly.
You get all kinds of people in this world.
I mean, here's the real pernicious thing about QAnon is that, what I really, really think it's probably a CIA psyop because they are getting certain information that you would not have if you were an insider. But what it seems to be doing to me is like there are a lot of truth seekers on the internet who could and should be devoting their time to really important things like researching like evil companies or paying attention to like the horrible shit that this administration actually is doing. But it's like diverting attention away from that but leaving enough breadcrumbs of truth to keep these people addicted to this fucking thing that's really just leading them down a lot of either false or really unsubstantial rabbit holes. And, that's even like Julian Assange and WikiLeaks was talking about this. Somebody brought QAnon up to them. One of their theories is that Julian Assange actually left the embassy and is, like, staying on some island somewhere or some shit. And,
I'm legitimately surprised he's still alive, by the way.
Yeah. And, they, me too. And, So, like, even they have said, like, this sounds like a CIA psyop, you know?
Well, or it could just be like a 4chan prank, or even just some anonymous leftist decide to troll these guys. Like, well, we have Anonymous. Let's create a version of Anonymous for them.
I mean, you know, to be fair, like I know people who do follow QAnon, and they're actually very intelligent people, and they do a lot of really great research. But
was that like your first exposure to it?
Yeah, like I've actually known about QAnon for the better part of a year now.
Oh, really?
I thought it was very interesting when, like, it broke into the mainstream and how the mainstream media reacted to it.
I actually only heard about it, I think, like a month or two ago through NPR, which I listen to on to and from home, and they just had these supporters on there, and oh my god, if you really want to hear someone who's just totally mystified, totally hypnotized, you could say, like the point that I brought up about how they think it's actually Trump. Well, they actually that's what this person actually believed. Like, our president is giving us information. He's helping us.
No, I mean that's
holy shit.
I mean that's the most pernicious thing about the QAnon thing is, and you know, as I've watched it evolve, here like there's a couple of tropes that are really consistent, and I mean it's probably the most laughable part of a conspiracy theory because. A lot, like I said, a lot of the other things do lead to genuine discovery, and it points out a lot of corruption, mostly from Democrats, which I do find a little like, okay, this doesn't have some kind of partisan bent, you know. It's kind of, some people say it's like it's not a left or right wing thing. It's like, okay, then how come they only ever talk about corrupt shit that the Democrats are doing, and you bring up like the corrupt shit that the Trump administration is doing, and then. I hear, it's probably become my least favorite trope of this whole thing. We talk to a lot of these QAnon people, and they talk about four-dimensional chess. Donald Trump is actually brilliant, and he's strategically doing all of these things to upset either the global capitalists or to upset these foreign quote-unquote allies who are actually like bad actors and and you know what drives me so crazy about that is like a conspiracy theory that Donald Trump is smart. I mean, that's just laughable on his fucking face. That's probably the most ridiculous conspiracy theory we got going. You go back, look at his unless he's running a long ass fucking con game, you know, you can look at him through the decades, and while he's gotten more senile in recent years, he's always been pretty dumb and had the business acumen of a bag of hair.
Not to like totally segue into Zach's and I previous conversation about conspiracy theories, because we could go on forever, but it just kind of exemplifies one of the few problems I have with conspiracy theories in general. One of them, like you said, is this whole long game thing, or even like leaving clues out in the open. Like how many like YouTube vids have you seen them like dissecting a Lady Gaga video to find Illuminati symbol?
Well, a lot of like their whole thing, like #TheStorm, comes from like some offhand comment he made about like, a storm's coming, and then people ask like, what do you mean by that? Like, I'm not gonna talk about it. And a lot of them think that like the storm refers to this like basically cascade of indictments that are going to be made about people.
It's gotta be a coincidence, and people just making shit up and looking into it. To quote the guys from last podcast on the left with some of their subjects, he Forrest Gumped his way into it.
But yeah, part of it is like that there are all these sealed indictments that primarily against like people from the Obama administration. Basically alleging like this vast web of criminality, and like the interesting thing to me about that is like the stuff that they're talking about is pretty normal in terms of the kind of corruption you'd see in Washington, and that's not to say that these aren't legitimate crimes that are being talked about, but the idea that they're going to be prosecuted, that his administration is somehow different, is going to bring these corrupt political actors to justice, it's fucking laughable. He's not gonna do that shit. If he was gonna do that shit, he would, for example, let's talk about 2016. He talked about like Bernie being treated unfairly and stuff. He talked about locking Hillary Clinton up. Did he do any of that shit when he got into office? Fucking no, he didn't.
No, that was actually one of the big big controversies was that he refused to lock up Clinton. I think he even said like, no, I'm not gonna lock her up. I want to help her heal.
Yeah. It's like, if you think, like, Trump is some kind of, like, JFK type president who is against the CIA, who's gonna actually, like, bring some justice to, or, you know, quote unquote, drain the swamp, you're a fucking fool. You are being conned. Look at that picture of him at his fucking wedding, laughing it up with the fucking Clintons, alright? Like, it's like George Carlin said. It's a big club, and you ain't fucking in
Or
it,
hell,
right?
even that really creepy pic of him, I think, like, his first trip to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
They're all around that fucking globe.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Remember that shit?
That's the Lochnar, you know, from Heavy Metal. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, God.
And, you know, just to wrap, fine point on the subject, QAnon talks a lot about criminality and bringing people to justice. And here's the most hypocritical thing about it to me, is when you bring up the crimes of the Trump administration, they either dismiss it as four-dimensional chess, or got somebody quoted to me, like, fucking, it was when all of the camps were were big in the news. Some quote from Abraham Lincoln about, like, you know, sometimes you have to, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he said, like, you have to push the system to its most corrupt and amoral to expose how horrible the system is. So the idea is Trump decided to install these more barbaric immigration policies to expose how horrible the system is, when all the evidence we see in the public record is that he's just dumb and a racist piece of shit. Not to mention, you know, you have a lot of these people who are involved in QAnon who I watched during the 2016 cycles talk about Hillary Clinton's war crimes nonstop, talking about Honduras, what the woman did to Haiti, etc., etc. And
Libya.
You know, yeah, and it's like, you know, I'm watching them now dismiss the war crimes of the Trump administration just out of hand. It's all part of the plan or some shit. And it's like, you know what? I want to ask. So what particular chess move is it in this four-dimensional chess game to bomb a bus full of 40 Yemeni children?
I'm still surprised.
Where part of the strategy is that?
I'm still really surprised they still use the chess thing, for example. That's like some really classic conspiracy theory stuff. Most people go with the Matrix.
Oh, well, they do that too. They talk
Red pill, blue pill.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, I guess back to the program.
Yeah, back to that little. Went down that rabbit hole there. Took the red pill, folks.
Okay, back to this blue pill. We're back to reality. Air quote. Mm-hmm. Okay, so how long has the radio show been going on so far?
Oh yeah. Yeah, since 2016. And I'll talk a little bit about the history of it. So I've been at Wider for like 10 years. They can't get rid of me.
Yeah, so you used to have a previous show on there under
Electropop Therapy
as Danger Group.
Yes, and you'll know I'm coming to the protest because it'll be a mix of like Public Enemy and
Doctor Who.
That's my band, but. So talking like my musical taste, it's either like radical, political charge hip hop or electro-pop music. So
actually, I think it was one of the first episodes I tuned in.
Yeah.
By tune in, I mean I listened to it on YouTube.
Yeah.
Because sadly, due to my job, I have to do that because most of the time I'm working past Sunday.
Yep.
I will say though, a couple times when I get home, I usually nap.
Yeah.
I have turn on my computer and live stream Wider.
All right.
And you have helped me go to sleep a couple times.
Hey, nice. Yeah.
No, the very first episode, I think there was like something wrong, or you were waiting for something. So you're like, let's get some electro pop in here.
Oh,
I'm like, oh wow, that's a nice throwback.
Yeah. It's actually gotten a lot more polished as we've gone along. Because like when it first started, it was just me, kind of talking about a lot of national issues, and then I'd work some local stuff in. Luckily, as time went on, I got some co-hosts who they helped the show be a lot more coherent, and you know I do most of the stuff off the cuff, and sometimes my rants kind of just drift off or whatnot.
Oh yeah, that's kind of one reason why I chose him with this podcast to have, as the description says, friends, acquaintances, and favorite people. Because I could do a podcast where it's just me talking about whatever. But I knew pretty much I would get boring as shit.
Oh yeah, conversations are way more interesting.
I know.
Just generally.
I know, and really, like I told you, I try to get like a solid hour with these. Mm-hmm. Do you really want to listen to me rant for like a solid hour?
Yeah. No, for real.
Or have me go back and forth with you, for example, or occasionally have Zach come in and laugh at something. Yeah, but one thing I really like about Hoodrat Strategist Radio Program is that actually kind of reminds me of another wider show that I used to like called Radio Free Kalamazoo.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the shows when I first moved to Kalamazoo that I really fell in love with, along with like the Heritage Hour and I forgot what it is, but it's basically like the punk rock show.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's one thing that really scored points with me when I first listened to it. It's like, hey, it's just like Radio Free Kalamazoo, another political talk show. It's really nice.
And, that was a big inspiration to me. And particularly at the time, Wider didn't have a political talk show. And I mean, this was in the midst of 2016, which was like this crazy, like, what Lenin, I believe, has that quote where, like, there are decades where, what is it? There are decades when nothing happens, and then there's weeks where decades happen. And 2016 was like a decade of a fucking year. So I was like, man, this is like, we need a show where people are on talking about this stuff. And as it progressed, something that became really important to me is, interesting, like 2016, I got involved with a lot of like, crazy high-end stuff, either with like, political strategizing or a lot of like high-profile activist movements. Like I spent a month at Standing Rock. And in the wake of that, I had so many friends who started either like getting involved, like they were starting either their own like national shows, or they were getting, basically setting themselves up as like independent journalists. And at the time, I got a lot of people asking if I wanted to like get involved with that. And, I took a lot of soul searching, especially down at Standing Rock, because like I could really go in one of two directions. I could become kind of like this nomadic journalist for one of these new startups that was kind of starting in the wake of 2016, or I could go home and really like focus my activism locally. And I chose the latter, and I'm really glad that I did, because, and I think, as our show's been on for 2 years, it's like, we talk a lot about like international issues and like, national progressive and leftist movements, but we try to devote an equal amount of time to what's going on in our backyard and do it in a very analytical way that you won't get from like Live or the local news channels.
That's actually one thing I'm actually kind of really glad you went down, because to go into a little story here, Joe Rogan Experience, one of my favorite podcasts, even though it's kind of been off here and there lately.
Oh yeah.
But the first time we had Doug Stanhope on, one of my favorite comedians, they were talking about Alex Jones, of course. Yeah. They're both friends with him. And Doug made a pretty good point, especially when it talk about conspiracy theories too, is that basically, Alex Jones will go on about this and that, these big national things, these big conspiracy theories, but you will never see him down at like a city commission meeting talking about street sweeping laws.
Yeah.
So, stuff that he could actually affect.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's, and I was also thinking about my own political experiences here in Kalamazoo, where, that's a whole nother segment, but when I was like comparing like you and I guess, it's like you and I did like a 180. Like when I lived in Kalamazoo, I was like really politically active, somewhat artistic. I'm way more into writing now. Whereas you were more artistic and a little less political.
Yeah.
At least that's how I saw it.
No, that's very true.
But then after 2013, when I moved to Grand Rapids, and 2014, after you returned from Europe, we kind of switched.
Yeah.
I'm more personal, and we really haven't done anything political. I've attended a few rallies here and there just to watch.
Yeah.
Whereas you've just gone straight into politics. You're working with this campaign. You got the program. You're working for this cause. You're traveling to like Standing Rock or Washington. So we really did a switch there. And overall, I'm glad that you've done more local stuff. Stay a little more grounded.
Oh yeah.
Hello.
Oh yeah. Somebody dinged me. Yeah.
Because another thing I reflect on my time in politics is that I really didn't do anything, I think, that really affected anything.
Yeah.
The closest I think I maybe did was like take part in Food Not Bombs, and that's because I was helping to feed people.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Other than that, everything else I did, every art advocacy I did, didn't really have an effect on Kalamazoo because it wasn't specifically Kalamazoo related, and thus nothing really happened because who's gonna listen to some college kid in Kalamazoo?
Oh yeah, and like one of the, not to go on a rant, but I just read a couple months ago Black Against Empire. It's probably one of the better books I've ever read, especially how comprehensive it is about like the history of the Black Panthers. And I think it's really important to read, especially right now, because we're starting to see this resurgence of leftist organizing, and also people are kind of rediscovering
New word, man.
the historic militancy of the American left. And what Black Panther Party did that was so effective is they combined theory and practice in a way that a lot of left organizations these days don't really understand. Kind of what I see is like you'll have either like you'll have organizations that are vocal about their opposition to capitalism and for like revolutionary action, but they kind of like they just talk. They don't really do much actionable stuff in the community. Or you'll have people who are constantly out in the community doing stuff, but they're not heavily politicized. They don't really talk about capitalism. You might have groups like Michigan United or Rise Up who will talk about it in terms of like neoliberalism and the assault on unions, but or just any of the nonprofits around here that are deliberately apolitical. What the Black Panthers did is they combined theory and practice. So, they would go out, they'd be like, here's a reading list. Here's like some revolutionary motherfuckers that you should listen to. Here's our program. But then they would do things that now most nonprofits, like their model came from people like the Black Panthers who had like, nationally, almost everywhere in the country now, you have like breakfast programs in schools for kids who can't afford breakfast. Black Panther started that. They fed people. They take old people to the grocery store. They did, people would show up to the Black Panthers and talk about like problems in their community, and this could range anything from somebody who's playing the stereo too loud to the city government is trying to like move us out of the park, and so the Black Panthers would show up. They would come out. They would help their community on a day-to-day basis. I think that's really what the left needs to start doing again. If we want to foster a revolutionary movement of the working class, you can't just stay in your own bubble. You can't just talk to all your friends at the end of the day about like theory or history or shit at the bar. You got to go into your working class neighborhoods and you got to help them out. And how will they become like a militant leftist? Well, they'll do it by like having conversations with you. And by seeing that, like, this is something that is going to help out their everyday lives.
That's not going to happen by wearing a beret or carrying an AK.
Or spreading enough memes.
That always works.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Because, make no mistake, too. Like, it's interesting to me. You talk about how, like, I was less political.
Well, that's just how I viewed it.
No, you're right. And I wanted to kind of jump off of that and talk about that a little, if you don't mind.
Oh, sure.
It's very interesting. It's like, before 2016, and so 2011, around the time Occupy, 2010 closer, was when I started doing Sista, Mista, which was a political rap group that I'm part of.
Oh yes, that has quite an origin story itself. Not just how it literally started, but the story behind Sista, Mista.
But I might tell that later if we got time.
Okay. We got all the time in the world.
Okay. Well, so Sista, Mista, as it described it, is a combination of public Enemy, Doctor Who, and Hedwig and the Angry Inch, and so like militant, transgender, LGBT politics, plus science fiction, and a lot of it's interesting for me to go back and like look at what I was writing about. A lot of it was social issues. A lot of it, it was when gay rights was really still like the main like civil rights issue that was in the whole conversation. And a lot of my class analysis in my own songs, I talked about the 1% versus the 99%, but it was still very vague. It was just like, these rich bastards ruin our fucking lives.
You took I wouldn't say a direct political approach, but you kind of went around it, like Bronson Boulevard.
Yeah. Talking
that was a ballad, actually.
Yeah, and that was a song that was about like, desiring to be middle class. But here's all these stories about like people who are economically poor, and like the first verse was about a woman who got her food stamps removed,
which is also named after an actual place here in Kalamazoo. Bronson Boulevard, and which is indeed full of rich people. Yeah,
and then the second verse was about like a genius prodigy growing up in the ghetto versus some milquetoast mediocre white dude growing up in the suburbs, and how like the dude in the ghetto ends up getting killed by rival gang members, and the white dude ends up just like, I don't know, getting drunk, driving around his parents' summer ranch, probably ends up in a president's cabinet or some shit.
Yeah. Well, there's other songs too, like Netflix is Alright, which is I think is about what, you're too poor to do anything else, so let's just stay in America.
Let's all get drunk, smoke some weed, and watch some classic cinema.
Yeah. And of course, my all-time favorite song, Would You Like Some Fucking Fries With That? Mm-hmm. Which you put out a great music video, just like British riots, I think.
British riots juxtaposed with fast food commercials.
Fuck you, and fuck you.
Actually, I will say that song has stood the test of time. That's probably as relevant, if not more so, than when I originally wrote it.
Yeah, I did joke after you came back from Europe, because you were performing as Sista Mista solo there.
Yeah.
And I think I was trying to imitate a Czechoslovakian when I was like, I like the song about the fries.
Actually, I had an interesting interaction in when I.
I think I know this one, but yeah, please tell.
When no, this isn't the Nazi.
Okay.
Well, that's interesting, but.
Oh yes.
If we're talking about like my political development, it reminded me of this interesting conversation I had I kind of got in trouble in Bucharest, Romania. I was doing
Budapest?
No, Bucharest. It's in Romania.
God, we should get Charton Code back on here.
Oh yeah. But I was in Romania for a week, and I performed at the hostel I was staying at. And when I started talking about so I'd gone and I to a lot of museums and stuff, looking up Ceausescu, and he was basically the Soviet bloc version of Donald Trump. He's I'm going to build this giant house in the middle of town for myself, and completely ignored the economic problems in Romania.
Did he have the hair?
It's pretty flamboyant hair. Yeah.
All right.
And there was essentially, it was pretty bloody. A lot of the fall of the Soviet era Romania. There was some riots, and it was a situation where military was really fucking killing some folks, and eventually they came out the other side of it. And I mentioned some of this in my set, all these tourists come down to enjoy your clubs and all of the bars and stuff. They just need to study some fucking history about authoritarianism. This dude piped up. I've never had this. This made me really anxious. It's the history is a little bit more complicated than that, and started I got thrown off and got through all the rest of my set. But I went to talk to him afterwards.
And you were dressed up as Sista Mista.
Yes. Right? Yeah, and I was like, I'm sorry I got so uncomfortable. You really threw me off. And he's like, well, look, understand. Romania was not saved by the fall of Soviet Union. And we had this really nuanced discussion about how, even though Ceausescu was, kind of a dictator and authoritarian, what happened in Romania, similar to what happened in the actual, in Russia and a lot of the other Soviet satellite states, is the fall of the Berlin Wall brought rapacious capitalism into the mix. And that's why it's you'll have people who, they've interviewed a lot of Russians who are very nostalgic for the Soviet Union.
Oh yeah, because, they still have Lenin there on display.
Oh yeah.
And if you disrespect, as in say you sneeze or something, they'll beat the shit out of you.
Yeah, so he brought up to me, he really made me think about, framing my politics outside of just being anti-authoritarian, because, before then, I was almost more, before I really got disciplined with my theory, it was more about like, oh, I just don't like political corruption. You know, there's probably a form of capitalism you could do that would be okay, but it's just always corrupt politicians. You know, that's what got me to do that march in 2016, where I was trying to like, we were protesting against money in politics. And you know, what's interesting to me is how since then, like, you know, I think a lot of us are in the same boat. Like, I didn't even really understand what socialism was like 4 or 5 years ago, and all of a sudden, it's like 2016 unlocked the door to a lot of shit for a lot of people.
Oh yeah, especially with Bernie Sanders.
Oh
honestly.
Yeah, and you know, since then, I've been critical of Bernie, and you know, I'm a lot more radically to the left of him. But you know, it's funny. I'm a member of the Socialist Party USA now. And, you know, people, they come correct. Like, Bernie's a capitalist. Bernie made some votes in the 90s that were very imperialistic. And they will criticize him rightly for a lot of this stuff. But I think, you know, a thing you got to keep in mind, you know, as far as Bernie Sanders goes, and, you know, he's done some asshole shit. You know, even in 2016, I was aware of, like, he basically voted to have this toxic waste dump site put in this, like, small town in the American Southwest. These people literally marched to Washington to meet with him to talk about it. And it was like some deal he made with the governor of Maine as well. So Vermont and Maine would send their medical waste to this dump site in the Southwest. The people in that town didn't want it. And
very progressive.
Yeah, they marched to his office, and his response, to paraphrase, was like basically like, tough shit. You don't live in Vermont. I don't have to listen to you. You
got burned.
You got burned. And also, like, more recently, that vote against, that threw sex workers under the bus. Sista. You know, he voted the wrong way on that, too.
Same with ICE, didn't he?
Or
has he made comments like, yeah, I don't want to disband them.
What happened with that was interesting, because he originally took a much softer stance with ICE, and then a lot of his own supporters gave him shit for it, and so he pointed out, I originally voted against ICE, and we need to reform our entire immigration system, and so, you know,
good impression.
Yeah, I will say, like, Bernie, to his credit, will actually respond to public pressure, unlike most of Washington.
Well,
so,
yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, I will say it was very disappointing seeing him after he lost air quotes to Hillary. You and I actually went to the rally where he was supporting Clinton.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God, it was bad.
There was just a weird. It reminds me of like that Simpsons episode where like the roasted pig goes flying through the air and Homer is just like, it's still good, it's still good. It's like that kind of sense of like desperate hope that like everybody got crushed and we knew that election was rigged, but people came, it's like, we just want to hear Bernie. And
yeah, that's actually kind of was my thing too. I'm like, I know he's got to say, but it's Bernie, and I gotta feel something.
And talk him into. Maybe he can talk me into voting for Hillary, you know?
Yeah. But yeah, that stunk. But we did have a good time at the apartment afterwards.
Oh, we did. Yeah, that was a nice story.
Yeah, with your friend Emily.
Emily, who's still doing badass things. And,
we got promptly hammered at Grand Rapids Historical Gay Bar.
Lots of '90s music videos.
Yeah, I know.
Right up my alley.
I know. We were freaking the fuck out the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
But what was I gonna say? You're always gonna find shit like that with these progressive candidates, like Alexandria Cortez, who I saw too. She was very awesome, or even our homie Abdul El Sayed. Like he's backing Gretchen Whitmer now, and I'm still very much on the ropes with her because
my whole thing with that, and this is not me speaking as a member of the Socialist Party, but just as an individual, is one, there's no candidate from my party running for governor. I know there's a Green Party person running.
Besides the whole Jill Stein thing, my relationship with the Green Party here in Michigan is not very good. Especially after I criticized one of them for using a town hall article to bash Democrats. I was like, dude, I understand you don't like them, but you really have to use a right-wing source to do it. And the guy basically told me to go fuck myself.
I've got a few things to say about that, and the Greens, and I'll get to it. I think what I want to kind of hone in on, with Whitmer, Keep in mind, like, just me speaking personally, the 2016 election was the first time I ever voted for a third-party candidate. Personally, I think the entire system needs to be reconstituted from the ground up, because it is just, like I said, I've become more militant. We need. I would support like a version of kind of anarcho-syndicalism. I think we should break. They talk about like shrinking government to the size of a baby you could drown in the bathtub. I would like to see the government literally just administrate a few social programs, and that just be its only function. No more standing armies, blah blah. Okay, I'm getting a little too deep into my own shit here, but what I was going to say about Whitmer.
Take that deep dive.
Yeah. So just you get a context of like, this is where I'm at politically.
Yeah, well, actually, now we're on Whitmer. So what do you think about the midterms? How did it come out like you expected, or was it any different?
And I guess I'll go into like Whitmer and stuff too. So, I voted for Abdul.
Same here. I actually like Abdul way more than even Bernie. Not just because of his policies, but he's way more energetic. Mm-hmm. I think he's a better speaker. Yeah. I guess
his policies are very
he's plus really, if you were to compare it, he's like the hip young guy as opposed to Bernie, who's just like this really old dude who kind of looks like Doc Brown.
Oh yeah. And he had a great platform. His policies were very detailed. You couldn't say that they were pie in the sky, because they were very concrete, and like he had a very good sense of how he was actually going to accomplish all these things. Which I know that was kind of the Whitmer people's main complaint, was like, oh, how's he going to get all this stuff done? It's like it's right fucking in there. Just read it. Yeah.
How can you do it without corporate backing?
Oh, yeah.
Like our candidates.
Yeah, exactly. Here's the thing with Abdul. He crawled up in the poll substantially. He was doing distant third, and for a while I'd actually kind of written it off. I'm like, he's probably not have a chance to win. And then like as it closed in the last 2 weeks, he got the Alexandria and the Bernie bump. And, that's probably why he did as good as he did. And, let's not... it was interesting to see the mainstream media the next day tell, a crushing defeat for the progressive movement. Because, here's another thing you keep in mind. By the numbers, the progressive insurgency into our electoral system is doing way better than it's done in decades. Their win rate right now is like 60, sometimes 65%.
Well, didn't they say that in part because Abdul is running for a governor position?
Yeah,
as opposed to all the other candidates who were lower.
Yeah, and I guess you think of it that way. It's understandable, but you gotta keep in mind, like, don't be hopeless because these certain high-profile candidates don't win, because. At the same election, we got a radical DSA member elected Congress in Detroit. Randy Bryce won out in Wisconsin. They defeated a right-to-work law in Missouri. So, overall, the progressive insurgency into our mainstream politics is doing better than it's done in decades. So you look at comparable movements like, Jesse Jackson's Rainbow Coalition, or when Howard Dean started Democracy for America. These had a lot of power and attention at the time, but as the years, as the elections ended, they kind of fizzled out. Here you see something that is actually gaining strength since 2016, rather than just being tied to Bernie's election and faltering. So, there's a lot of hope to look at in there. Where was I going with? So, how this election, the midterms here panned out. It's a little disappointing that Abdul didn't win, but I would say this. I would caution this if you're thinking of, and this is going to sound really weird coming from me. I'm personally voting for Gretchen Whitmer.
How dare you?
Well, here's the thing. Why didn't I vote for Hillary Clinton in 2016? 3 primary reasons. Let's lay them out. One, she fucking cheated.
Yeah, that's a big reason right there.
Yeah, and that's not even me being like, cheaters shouldn't get voted for. Not only that, but I donated a lot of my money and time to the Bernie Sanders campaign, so I couldn't shake the feeling of the fact like I got robbed. Like literally, they stole my fucking money. Like I am not gonna vote for somebody who came in the night and it was the same to me as if somebody were to like bust into my house and like crack open my fire safe and steal a bunch of my fucking money. That was like that was what the Democratic Party did to me. They stole my fucking money. So there's that on the personal level. There's also the fact, number two, Hillary Clinton's a fucking war criminal, and that's something.
An actual war criminal with various offenses, not just the right wing Benghazi.
No, not the Benghazi. Yeah,
that was bad too, but just to focus specifically on that.
Yeah, Honduras, Libya, any of the number of other countries that we decided to bomb while she was Secretary of State.
She supported the wars in Iraq, Afghanistan.
Yeah. But what really clinched it for me is I was even open to voting for her after that. It all boiled down to one issue: climate stuff. 2016, the DNC Platform Committee. There was a vote on certain aspects of their climate policy, and keep in mind, Hillary Clinton can say whatever the fuck she wants, but her climate, the policies that were enshrined in that Platform Committee would be the stuff she'd be tied to. If she said she was going to go further left to it when she was president, that's a bunch of fucking hogwash. There's nothing that's tying her to it.
Okay, my reasons I didn't vote Clinton are similar to yours. Fucked over Bernie, corrupt as fuck, war criminal. And to actually quote Obama back when he was running against Clinton, one of his ads was like, Hillary Clinton, she will say anything and do nothing.
Well, yeah.
And I even saw like the comparisons, like on healthcare. And one she said straight up, and this was like before Bernie started supporting her and she adopted, air quote, the positions. She just straight up said, no, healthcare in this country universal healthcare in this country will never happen. It can't be done. Next one, I support universal healthcare.
Yeah.
And then another one was education. Mm-hmm. I think she says something like, well, I support, what's the word? Universal education.
Universal education. Access.
Yeah, it's not like
a lot of Democrats use the access word to.
Yeah, I should know what the term is, but whatever. Anyway, she said like she only supported it and like forgiveness for loans for entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. So, well, to go into this room, Zach here, who is an entrepreneur, he would get forgiven. Mm-hmm. Whereas you and I, no, because we don't have our own startup business.
Yeah.
Love you, Zach.
Yeah.
Please don't stop working on my book. I'm not bashing. No, but then after that, I support free education for everyone. Mm-hmm. So it's like, okay, I know people can change. I've changed, you've changed, we all have. Yeah. But I don't believe in, like, epiphanies. No. It's a process. It takes time. Yeah. You really don't believe that shit, do you?
Yeah, and, boil it down to, like, real specifics, like her people in that platform committee voted down a ban on fracking. They voted down a moratorium on fossil fuel extraction, which basically, here's what her climate platform was at that point. Stripping away all the bullshit. It was, no, we don't care if you fucking peasants go extinct either, but here's a few solar panels so y'all will shut up about it. So, I was not, at that point, I'm like, this is like a dark comedy. I'm not voting for slower extinction, But do you want Trump to win? I like, at that point, it doesn't fucking matter. We're all gonna fucking die under either of these two people. So
well, if you listen to some people, it's explicitly our fault that he
of course.
Not the people who voted for Trump himself.
Or
the people who screwed over Bernie.
Or the people who suppressed the vote in 2016. The number one thing that actually affected the 2016 election and tilted it to Trump was something developed by Chris Kobach called cross-check. And what it does is it's this perniciously racist thing where they will look at people in bordering states with similar names, and based on that, it will knock you off a voter list. This disproportionately affects Black and Latino voters.
Democracy.
Yeah. So what was the margin by Trump? Trump won Michigan by about 15,000 votes, right?
Maybe, give or take.
Yeah. Do you know how many people were kicked off the voter rolls because of cross-check?
I honestly don't know.
70,000.
Oh, that's nice.
Hey, yeah.
Hey.
Of course, people want to say, well, it's Jill Stein. People didn't vote for Jill Stein. He would have won Michigan. No. If a bunch of racist scumbags hadn't thrown 70,000 people off the voter rolls, he would not be fucking president right now. But it's easier to blame poor people with no money and no power than it is to actually hone in on what is wrong with our electoral system and work to change it.
I mean, dude, just recently, after Gretchen won, I wrote a post that said like, oh great, now I get to hear Gretchen people tell me to get in line for the next 3 months.
Oh yeah.
I actually defriended a guy, a local comedian around here, who's usually nice with my interactions with him. Just straight up come out on my post and tell me, well, you better remember to vote right.
Well,
he's one of those big guys that's really into, you should vote this way.
Oh, yeah.
I will never believe that you're not at fault.
Yeah. I will say
very
this,
annoying people.
I will say this much too, even though I'm saying now that, I think I'm willing to vote for Gretchen.
Very quickly, would you like another water?
Oh, I'm good for now. Thanks, though.
Okay.
But yeah, with well, I said I'm willing to vote for Gretchen. I mean, your vote should always be conditional. Nobody's entitled to your vote. And I know, like, Bill Schuette's a piece of shit, and it would be a fucking horror show if he became governor. But you still, like, if she, here's the thing, if she compromises on her climate platform as it stands today, I ain't gonna fucking vote for her. Because, right now she's saying, we're gonna dismantle Line 5, and we're gonna, similar to, like, not quite as radical as Abdul's platform, but from what I've seen, she's on the right side of it. But, yeah, like I said, if she goes back on any of that shit, I ain't gonna vote for her. And also, to be fair to Gretchen, at least as far as I know, she has not committed any war crimes. So,
At first I did, but I don't view her as bad as Hillary now.
No,
I really don't.
Yeah.
I did a couple of times call her Hillary 2.0.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Actually, I do have a funny story about that.
Well, her thing is her Goldman Sachs is Blue Cross Blue Shield.
I know that's a big thing too, because that's the one thing holding me back with her right there.
Yeah.
And actually, when it came to this election, here's how I predicted how I got it wrong. Gretchen gone because she's just your standard, run-of-the-mill corporate candidate.
Mm-hmm.
Michigan don't fuck with that.
Yeah.
It'd either be Abdul, who's very Bernie-ish, very progressive. Mm-hmm. We love Bernie here in Michigan.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Or Shri would have got it because Shri is a lot like Trump.
Yeah.
He's physically conservative, or more so, he's a corporate startup guy. He started his own business. He did this. He did that. Who does that remind you of? Trump.
Yeah.
Who we voted. So it's like in Michigan, we have this really great progressive side. Fuck the corporations. We gotta do this to help the people. Yet we also have this side with Shri, where it's like, oh, he's a can-do guy. He did this on his own. He started that. I like that. I could possibly accomplish that.
Yes, and
So I was surprised that Shri got last, and I'm surprised Gretchen won.
That didn't really surprise me. Like, do a little bit of post-election quarterbacking. Shri was definitely a spoiler, and Abdul. I don't know if he still would have won if Shri was out of the race, but it would have been a hell of a lot closer, than just a few percentage points.
Even with Shri, like the claims against him, like the whole, dog thing.
Yeah, I think that's what caused him to be so low.
Yeah,
people actually looked him up, and it's like, this guy is kind of like a scarecrow.
Again with the Trump comparisons, it's like, that's bad, but look how many people in Michigan voted for Trump, even though he's Trump.
Yeah. And, racism probably did play a bit of a role in it. People worried that, I'm wringing their hands. I don't know if a Muslim could win Michigan.
God. That's what was interesting on the Democratic side. You had a white woman and 3 men of color.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I guess, especially when it came to, Abdul, Shri, and Bill Cobbs. Mm-hmm. Bill, African-American, Shri, Indian-American. Yeah. Abdul, Egyptian-American, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like... Mostly Abdul got it, big time. I think one of the Republican candidates even based part of his platform was on, oh, Abdul's has connections to this possible terrorist group.
Oh yeah, and that's the thing with like a lot of the liberals is a lot of them been so fucking scared and terrified by what Donald Trump and what he's doing that I think that played into it a little bit. I think some of them, if somebody else, even if a different kind of Republican was president, they probably would have felt safer and more courageous and been like, I'm gonna vote for Abdul. Ooh. But this election cycle, we just need fucking Democrats in power. Oh God, you know what? That would be nice, but I gotta vote for the safe white lady.
Yes.
And I did want to mention that there were things that Abdul's campaign should have done that they didn't do.
That's actually that's actually one thing when I was thinking over stuff to talk with you about. Okay, we are both for Abdul. We both love him very dearly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What do you think he could have done differently in his campaign?
Well, he didn't.
What did he do?
Well, let's compare him to like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who she's got that famous picture of her shoes are just worn completely because she's been knocking on every damn door in her neighborhood.
Like I said, I've seen her speak in Grand Rapids when Abdul was doing like his last push. She's awesome.
Oh yeah. What I heard, keep in mind, like I'm pretty tuned into the progressive movement, so like I hear things and whatnot. And I had a friend who questioned them about like, so what's your campaign gonna do to reach out to Black and Hispanic communities? And this was like either his campaign manager or somebody in his main campaign team, and it like it completely stumped them. They were like, well, we have all these good policies that they'll like, and it's like what the fuck? You're not gonna. Their strategy was to basically mobilize all of the Bernie progressives and hope somehow that it would trickle down into these disaffected communities, that you'd have enough of like the nice white progressive people that you could have them canvass in certain like bad off neighborhoods. But the canvassers, they didn't do that. They didn't go to those neighborhoods, particularly Detroit. Detroit was a real problem because Gretchen's people. That's where they went. They went all over the neighborhoods of Detroit, talking about like you guys need to win. You need to vote for the sensible candidate who can win. And a lot of those down and out working class people said, "Oh, let's vote for this lady." If you're, and it's similar to like some of the mistakes that Bernie Sanders made in his campaign, where he got kind of like he did come around to some really great campaigning for like marginalized communities, but it happened kind of late. They were depending on a lot of like really energetic, white, somewhat privileged progressives to just carry his campaign and spread the word.
Even though he marched with MLK and was endorsed by Killer Mike.
Oh yeah, I mean he was. Don't get me wrong about that. But your ground game in the communities that are the worst off, that needs to be the thing you focus on. Like, and if you don't, you're not going to beat these establishment candidates. Just you can't rely on white liberals to decide that they're going to vote for you. They're it's like a leaf of the wind. There were probably a lot of people who got in that voting booth and just had a lot of white liberal people getting in that voting booth and be like, "Oh, safe white lady, oh, that's," you got to depend on like people who usually don't show up to be like, this is Abdul. He's going to change this state and actually help out the fucking poor people like me.
I know, that's exactly how I felt.
Yeah, but
that's why I still believe in him. Even.
Oh, yeah.
I'm still glad that he hasn't, like, outright disappeared like Shree has.
Oh, yeah. I hope he's been out there. He still is. So. I think he needs to take a long-ass vacation, but I'd like him to be involved in Michigan politics again.
Well, more of a vacation because he had a very grueling schedule. So, yeah, take a break, homie.
Yeah.
But please stick around. We need you.
Oh, yeah.
So, okay, I guess end this discussion. When it comes to the Michigan election this fall, who you think? Gretchen or Schuette?
Who's going to win?
Yeah.
If the Democrats don't get too arrogant about their blue wave bullshit, I think it will be a close one though, because she's gonna have a lot of work to really mobilize and energize people, and I think she's making certain of the right moves on it. She's at least she hasn't been like condescending to like Abdul's people like certain presidential candidate was.
Oh God, yeah, she's been good with that. It's her fans. That's another thing.
And she's also been like, keep in mind like certain of our policies are fairly progressive, like $15 minimum wage, all that stuff. Like it's And she is open about how, like, yeah, she's been pushed left on some of these issues. So if she can kind of market herself the right way, I think she can come over the top and beat Schuette. And honestly, yeah, Schuette oh God, he would be a hot pile of garbage as governor.
We've been having a hot pile like that for these past couple of years. A very fascist one, in fact.
Yeah, and
Who poisoned Flint.
Yeah, and with Gretchen, like, I think it's almost even less about her. Even beyond how so many people are mobilized by Trump. It's how these elections go. We ping pong back and forth between the political parties. We'll have a Democrat governor, then a Republican one, then a Democrat. And the conditions are really ripe for a switch in power in that manner, just the way like all the historical gears are turning. So I think Gretchen will win, but it might not necessarily even be because of how strong her campaign is. If she wins, it'll be like just based on the mobilization of not only there's a more technical term for it. How we switch back and forth between the parties, and just there are a lot. The left wing or blue base is just more mobilized than the Trump people are right now. It just is. So,
all right.
Yeah.
I guess get back to the radio program.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. How has the reception been for it so far?
Really good. And like one of the things I'm proud of is. When you are local and you don't really have space for a lot of alternative media, it's great that I have a place that people, small activists or marginalized folks, they just have like somewhere they can come on and talk about the issues going on in Kalamazoo that isn't going to be either like squeaky clean, antiseptic like it is on the local news, or where you have in live, where props to Malachi Barrett, he does a lot of really good reporting, but they have to always get like both sides of the issue. That was a big problem with the foundation. Is like our critiques would be couched with these statements where they're just like, no, you just need to have faith in these billionaires and blah 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 blah. And it allows a space where you can get really critical and analytical with the local issues that are going on. You can we provide a voice and a space for local activists that they don't traditionally have with most of the local media. So I've been really proud of that, and the reception of it it's interesting because like I don't really have a good way to judge our footprint. I can look and see how many people are listening when it's live, and I know the YouTube channel doesn't really get all that many hits. Like on average, about 20 people a week will listen to the shows on YouTube. But then again, I'll be walking around. And random people will hear my voice, and then they'll be like, "Hey, you do the political show on Wider," and then they'll like.
Well, I know. Well, you did make a post one time. Some guy bitched you out because he didn't like your colloquial. What's that word?
Colloquial
humor.
Yeah, let me see. If you're interested in listening to the show, there's a lot of humor in it. I like to describe it to people as like, imagine if Democracy Now! Was hosted by a bunch of folks on a front porch drinking 40s. Like that's
nice.
Yeah.
I mean, if you really want some boring shit, I don't know, tune to NPR.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I like it, but even sometimes I'm like, ugh.
Yeah, like some lady criticized me for calling. It's like, I'm not gonna listen to this show after I referred to Bernie Sanders as New Deal Grandpa, and like my response was like, "Yo, lady, I ain't Amy Goodman, all right? Like
I think I was listening to that.
Yeah, it's like I'm the Hoodrat Strategist. You think in the name it says it, We call out the establishment's bullshit. That's our tagline,
Before we move on, anything upcoming with the show that you would like to talk about?
Developments? I guess I'll only say we're about to really rev up now that the students are coming back. We're going to start up our candidate interviews really hardcore in the spring. It was really nice because all of the congressional candidates here in CD6 ended up on the show, and we were able to really go in depth and talk about the issues. So now that the college students are back, we're going to be bringing people on the show who are running in the local elections this fall for school board, for state, House, and Senate here in the area. We've got some people running for county commission we're going to talk to and interview. Those are really important. There's not enough political coverage about local elections, and that's been another thing I've been really proud of on the show. Like the local news, they'll go as far as like governor, and I will give Channel 3 props for hosting a town hall with all of the congressional candidates, but that wasn't even on their normal news coverage. That was just like an extra thing you could watch on the internet. They don't have candidates and stuff on for interviews, so I'm really happy we're going to be a space where that kind of stuff can happen.
Yep. Hoodrat Strategist Radio Program. Tune in Wednesdays, 5 to 7. On 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo.
Your only source for political revolution.
And you can also find it on YouTube. Yeah. I'll link all that shit down in the description.
Yeah, sure can. It's a fun, interesting show. If you want to hear like local leftist takes on local and geopolitics, but with like a splattering of kind of Jimmy Dore style humor in there.
Basically, you sound like a human being.
Yeah, we're all just humans talking about how mad we are at this shit. It's like you heard how much it's like we'll start a headline and be like, oh man, listen to how much they're up in the military budget this time. God damn, and it's just like what the fuck. I mean, we don't curse on there because FCC, but yes,
But you can curse on here as much as you want.
Oh yes, yeah. Mm-hmm. Shit. All right.
Okay. We already talked about some of the political groups, activities that you're a part of, like the recent action against the homeless resolutions.
Ordinances.
I love it when I talk so much that I start mixing up words.
Yeah, that happens to me too.
And of course, you're talking about the foundation. What else in Kalamazoo has been like ongoing that you've been involved in? Any projects?
Okay, yeah. What's interesting is like the activist scene in Kalamazoo has changed a hell of a lot just in the last 6 months. 2018 has been a very different year than 2017. There's been less of the continuous protests against the Trump regime. That's something you saw pretty regularly, especially when you had like Michigan United and Pro-KZoo organizing stuff on the regular. Now it's geared a lot more towards. I've seen more groups do like education workshops. Again, we're in election season, so I think a lot of the energy has been going towards that. Other ongoing projects. As far as leftist organizing in Kalamazoo goes, all the socialist orgs are growing. I would really encourage everybody to get involved with something somewhere like that. Southwest Michigan DSA is a growing chapter. They've been doing a lot of work canvassing for Medicare for all. The Socialist Party that I'm a part of, we have a small local chapter here.
Yeah, I was about to say, I consider myself socialist, and I'm not part of any party, and I don't really intend on becoming part of one. But if I were to pick the closest ones that I could relate to, it'd probably be the DSA. Yeah. So I was wondering, what made you choose? Let's choose. Say again.
Socialist Party USA.
Socialist Party USA over the Democratic Socialists in there.
Okay. Well, actually, something to understand. There's a distinction. Is that the DSA is not actually a political party.
It isn't.
No. They're an activist group. That's why they're typical. So, give you a little bit of history. This is around.
I totally splooged that description.
Oh no, that's quite all right. A lot of people don't know that. That's important to bring up. There was actually a split with the Socialist Party, the American Socialist Party. I think this was in the 40s or 50s, and I'm kind of slaughtering this. I can't remember exactly who was involved, but there was the basic split was whether socialists should try to run candidates inside the Democratic Party to push it to the left.
Oh, that's a very interesting topic I would like to talk about.
Or if the Socialist Party should remain just its own Socialist Party, because, and this is a fair point too, like the Democratic Party is always going to be capitalistic. It's not worth trying to work inside their party. And so the side that decided we'll try to work with the Democratic Party, that turned into the Democratic Socialists of America. it's interesting you ask that question. It's like, that's actually a big split in a lot of leftist organizing, especially a lot of the older heads who organize with left-wing parties now are kind of split on how to approach DSA. Last Socialist Party meeting we had, actually, it was like we were talking about tabling at Already Dead Fest with the DSA. We work pretty closely with them here at our own local chapter, and actually one of our members is a dual member who is both a member of the Socialist Party and the Democratic Socialists of America.
Yeah, I'm about to say, what is the relationship between you guys? Is it like cordial, or is there some animosity there?
No, I mean, locally it's cordial. Like I said, here's the big difference. Is, I think you have a lot of the older folks in DSA who their whole idea is, it's almost more being like a social democrat. That FDR thing where, we're not against capitalism, we just want to rein in its excesses.
Oh, that is the one thing I have with DSA, and because occasionally I see like a meme explaining what democratic socialism is. It has like a picture of Bernie or Alexander next to it or whatever. One of the points is always like, we don't want to destroy corporations, we want to reform them. Yeah. Which I'm like, hold up. I like everything else, but come on, reform corporations? Yeah. Have you not seen the documentary, The Corporation? Yeah.
And what's really interesting is like I get to see how geography and how local grassroots organizing colors a lot of these opinions around this, because with our local DSA, and I think more broadly you could say most of the young people who've joined DSA since 2016 are more overtly and vocally anti-capitalistic than kind of the old guard membership. If we want to speak in terms of memes, that one where there's there's the bird and then there's the raven.
The bird's just talking, and then the raven's just...
Yeah, so I would say the bird is old school DSA, and the raven would be new school DSA, all these millennials and stuff that have been doing. So the bird is talking, what we really need to do is just reform capitalism so it's more humane, and the crow is just seize the means of production, eat the rich.
To go further with memes on the point about, let's reform corporations. Yes. Mm-hmm. We don't want to destroy them, we want to reform them. I'm that grandpa, that senior citizen from The Simpsons, Mole Man or whatever. Say but I want to.
But I want to, yeah.
That's me right there. Yeah. But I want to destroy corporations.
So, the funny thing, DSA, local chapter of the DSA, is that we, us in the Socialist Party and the DSA, we'll end up working on the same issues and stuff together. And like I said, we even have crossover members. Our local chapter... or the local chapter of the DSA, I should say, it's pretty radical and probably to the left of what the mainstream leadership of DSA is. One of our guys from the east side of the state who came to the local meeting was a lot more against us tabling with DSA than we were, because of his perception of the DSA chapter out of Detroit and nationally being a lot more liberal.
God. And is he kind of like one of those wag your finger types? No, don't you be tabling?
No. Matt's cool, and he was it's your local chapter, just do what you do. But he brought up, and it's a legit criticism. Even we had our dual member there at the table, and he wasn't going out of his way to really defend DSA. He was yeah, you're right. All I can say is just the local chapter here is a lot more anti-capitalistic. And
okay, well that's good then.
And I think really you got to understand I think what it boils down to ideologically is DSA versus Socialist Party is really about whether or not you actually can use the Democratic Party to get socialist ideas out there and get socialists elected. And even I would say I do personally like Alexandria, but she's really, a lot of her policies are more of being a social democrat than they are to be an actual democratic socialist. And I think still though it's important. It's so important to get those kind of progressive people elected. If you're talking about like harm reduction, but
I'm personally all for it because one, we've seen it happen. Mm-hmm. Obviously, Bernie is like the big one. Yeah. And we see it recently with Abdul Alexandria. Mm-hmm. And two, if we were to go look on the right, they do it all the time. Like look at how the Tea Party infiltrating Republicans.
Tea Party is very analogous to what's going on with the Democratic Party.
Or look how much the MAGA people are doing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it is possible. If anything, I think maybe the Republicans are more susceptible to it.
Mm-hmm. So, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and that's why I even advocate people who are more aligned with third parties take place into it.
Yeah.
Like I use examples, Ron and Rand Paul, because whenever I heard about them, well, maybe until recently with Rand Paul, he's kind of become a bitch. But all I heard about them is like, oh, they're Republicans, but they're libertarians.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking like, okay, if we have libertarians, Republicans, why don't we have Green Democrats?
Yeah, exactly.
Or even with Occupy, like I haven't heard. Last time I heard about Occupy, one of the co-founders, air quotes, was working for Google, and I guess suing for the copyright of Occupy.
Authority always wins.
Yes, exactly.
Co-opt your ass.
Yeah. So, but the Tea Party's still going. I mean, I even heard the term Tea Party vote back in 2016. So I'm like, where's the Occupy vote? We have Tea Party Republicans. We're Occupy Democrats. Actual Occupy Democrats, not that Facebook page that has memes that I don't find funny, so I don't share them. So I do think it's really possible. I really do think that you should take part in the established parties. You should really culture jam that shit.
Mm-hmm. So you're exactly right. Like, I feel like, when you asked me like Socialist Party versus DSA, and I think this actually gets to a much bigger question. And I think this is something like a lot of leftists are really toying with right now, especially even like a lot of people in DSA who are anti-capitalist. So I remember when I was marching in 2016 with Democracy Spring. It's funny to remember like kind of what I was talking about, and especially the Bernie Sanders campaign was really making me think hard about like why can't we go back and do like a New Deal? I mean, that's why I call it New Deal Grandpa, And at the time, somebody asked me, like a reporter while I was marching, "Well, you're doing this," and I'm like, I consider us. It's like we're the canary in the coal mine for the corporate CEOs and like the politicians. We're letting them know that revolution and dissension is possible, and they basically it was kind of the same conversation that was going on around the New Deal. I think a lot of people mischaracterize FDR as being he was this benevolent democratic socialist who just came up with all of these ideas.
Japanese Americans would disagree with you.
Oh yeah, exactly. How did those social programs happen? It was because the Progressive Democrats and the Communist Party and the Socialist Party here in America were really strong and were a hell of a lot more militant back then, and they were making these demands on the president, and these were not empty, hollow demands. Keep in mind, at the time, the Russian Revolution was only like a decade and a half in the past. There was a legit fear that if they didn't institute these progressive New Deal programs, the citizenry was going to revolt and overthrow the current system. That was FDR's pitch. When we're talking about a canary in the coal mine, he went up to the capitalists. He went up to the businesses and the politicians and said, if we don't give these poor motherfuckers something, they are going to bring us to the guillotine. And, with me, I feel like that's kind of the same conversation we're having. Like with DSA and entryism into the two-party system, they're the ones saying like, we're the canary in the coal mine. If you don't start giving us back these social benefits again, people could revolt. And it got me thinking about how like my thinking in 2016 and beforehand was in this idea of cycles, like the left wins like in the 30s, and then it gets beat back by like the Powell memo and all the right-wing shit, and now it's coming back around again. This is for the people of the sun. But what it made me, what the crucial difference between now and 2016, the way I think of things politically now, is okay, yeah, suppose DSA wins. Suppose in 2020 we get President Bernie Sanders. Suppose the Democratic Party, more or less, just gets completely replaced with Social Democrats, in the DSA mold. We're still going to have capitalism. We're still going to have a system where that rapacious, Lewis Powell style capitalism can reconstitute itself and come back, and also thinking about, like, in terms of reform, we have a very hard deadline here. If we don't start doing militantly left shit when it comes to climate change very soon, either extinction or it's going to be like fucking Road Warrior up in this bitch. There's going to be only certain parts of this planet that will actually be habitable.
Actually, my view of dystopia is actually related more to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
Where in a lot of their futures, from like the original Mirage comics, like the Archie comics, it's basically global warming came to be, and everything just got fucking flooded.
Yeah.
And it just basically became a dystopia. Some places were better off than others.
Waterworld.
Waterworld, pretty much.
So, those are two options.
We drink our own piss.
As of now, we're either looking at extinction or at the very least the collapse of organized human life, like Mr. Noam Chomsky likes to say.
He's right, too. I just wish he wasn't so fucking boring.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
So, that'll be really interesting to see how it plays out. Unfortunately, the weird thing about, socialism is, it's one of those things have to get worse before they get better type of situations. Things had to get this bad for people to rediscover socialism in the first place, in such mass numbers. For the people who are about reform right now, it's, for me, we're on the cusp of all of these innovations. You're talking about, I'm also kind of a science fiction guy. There's elements of transhumanism in my thinking. And we're really at a fork in the road with human evolution and development, where we've got to really make some hard and concrete decisions about the kind of civilization that we want to have. And if capitalism, even tamed, nice capitalism, has any part in it, we could be sowing the seeds for a really horrific civilization further on down the line. I think of I'm starting to get all spacey and shit, but
do it.
Okay, so I've actually been thinking about writing a short story lately, and it's about kind of the end of the human race. But it's an interesting twist on it that the hero of the story basically chooses not to save the human race, but to kill us all off. And so what happens at the end of the story is there's elements of real life in this right now, because there's a lot of Silicon Valley type folks who their take on transhumanism, it's very libertarian, it's very
very Elon Musk.
Very Elon Muskish,
launch cars into space.
And that we can put ourselves in put our existences in positronic brains. So their whole idea is that there will be this privileged class that will take all of the benefits of transhumanism, and then
that's almost a staple of science fiction.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I think even Futurama had it when the first episode they explained how the future went. All the rich celebrities in that were that was the Atlantis episode.
Yeah. So you gotta think if the human race survives all this climate bullshit that we're going through, our technology is eventually going to develop to such a point that it will be a tangible evolution in how human beings actually function. And if you're talking about breaking the singularity, it's things that we would probably describe as almost godlike.
We discussed Waterworld.
Oh yeah.
But personally, I think you may agree with this.
Yeah.
Fallout.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's a definite possibility too.
More
than one of these could happen at the same time. The world I envision this science fiction story is basically Fallout, but there's also this cabal of basically descended from our current rich capitalists who have broken those transhumanist barriers. But
you mean the Illuminati?
Oh, I don't know. Like my whole thing with that is, the ruling class is the ruling class. You don't need conspiracy theories, but so like, at the end, without this fundamental change in human thinking, they basically have these plans to benevolently colonize the universe. And let's say this hero of our story is dirt poor, they're living in an irradiated wasteland, but they know enough about history to understand, oh shit, this is really bad. Like,
Not at all based on you.
Yeah, so,
it's not like a Bandy Bargo.
Yeah, a little bit. But, this hypothetical situation, I think, like, it all sounds very philosophical and big, but, like, we got to understand, like, we've got to make some really big choices in the next few years of civilization of where we're going to go. And if we allow the worst impulses of humanity to crawl along with it, we could be looking at a really horrible future. Like, I'm looking at us like we could become the blight on the universe that our science fiction stories always talk about with the invading aliens. We could be the ones showing up to alien planets saying, hey everybody, we present to you capitalism. Now all of you become slaves and start buying our sneakers. It's like, oh lordy. Wouldn't want that. So that's why I'm a socialist.
No, for real, if you didn't write a story, I think you could really pull out some Philip K. Dick, William Gibson shit on there.
Mm-hmm. Just gotta find the time. Oh man, yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Oh, holy shit, we got 2 hours here.
I think, yeah. I don't know if y'all want to you're gonna keep ranting. 2 hours is about the length of my own show too. So.
Coincidence.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Actually, I really gotta use the bathroom, so.
Okay.
That's why I wrap all this up.
Do you want to wrap that shit up, B? Wrap that shit up. Yeah.
Wrap it up, homie. Alright, so very, very quickly, besides literally everything we talked about, is there anything else that's coming up with you? Anything more at the radio show? Anything artistic on the artistic side, like with music or anything?
Well, I am working on some new Sista Mista material. We've practiced, and we've just. It's funny because like. I feel like, man, we did exactly the same shit that Rage Against the Machine, that I criticized Rage Against the Machine for, in the sense that like they broke up right before the Bush years, and it's like, oh man, right when we needed them the most.
Yeah, Tom Morello keeps going, whereas Zach LaRocha just disappeared.
Yeah,
and actually, when I first got into Rage, I found like some random message board about them. One of the very first posts. Oh, hey, KC, what's up, man?
Mm-hmm.
But one of the first things I saw on message board one was like, where the fuck is Zach LaRocha?
Yeah.
It's a troll post.
Yeah.
It's like, man, where'd you go? All this great shit starts happening, you fucking hide.
Yeah. But so we're working on some new material, and I'm looking to maybe I don't have anything set in stone yet. We'll probably start doing I want to do a show in November. I'm going to be very vague about that because I'm not sure where or when it's going to be yet.
Well, you have a new house, though.
That's true, I do, yeah.
Is that going to be a house venue as well?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. I haven't really figured out what to call it yet. We've got a few ideas. I think the two that have been strongest are either like Invisible College or...
Which is another song.
Which is another song, yeah. And... the Wakandan Embassy, which,
I take it you like Black Panther, the movie?
Oh, hell yeah. Like, my only issue with that is, like, that one was Kamisha's idea, and that's a badass idea for a house. I almost want to save that for, like, if there's ever a house venue that's entirely run by black people, that anything related to Wakanda or Black Panther, they should
in Kalamazoo,
have dibs on.
Kalamazoo.
I don't know, well, actually, to be fair to the DIT kids, the scene has gotten a little bit more diverse in the last couple of years.
Oh, God. We won't get into that now.
Yeah, that's another hour's long.
Yeah, actually, I would like to have you on again. Yeah, seriously.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, really, I do consider you a very good friend.
Yeah.
I've actually, I talked about this before. I said there's only about about 4 people whose opinions that I truly take seriously. And not to mean I just totally disrespect everyone, but if someone says something shitty or they make it personal, I just kind of bounce it off.
Yeah.
Shake it off. Taylor Swift song.
Shake it off.
No, out of the 4 people, it's basically Zach Elmblad here, John Withy, former guest. He's now living in Massachusetts, I think.
Oh yeah, he just moved. That's right.
Yeah, Andrew Joyce, another guy I would like to get on. And then there's you.
Oh man, that's a hell of a pantheon there. Shit. This is
I know, man. So yeah, I consider you a very good friend. Even if I disagree with you on stuff, I do take your opinions really into account.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
And we really could get into stuff we disagree with, like Russia.
Yeah.
But yeah,
that's a nuanced conversation right there.
Yeah. I don't know. Let's do this again sometime. I really want to.
I'd love to do that. Yeah.
All right, this is part where we do some promo shit. What would you like to promote?
Hoodrat Strategist Radio Program every Wednesday from 5 to 7 on 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo. You can either listen live at our website or you can listen to our episodes anytime at our YouTube page. Also, if you live in Kalamazoo, there's a chapter of the Kalamazoo Socialist Party. You always sign up. And also, we've got a state party too. Sign up, Socialist Party USA. Also, if you live in Kalamazoo, the Occupy camp is still going strong. They've got a list of demands. Actually, let me read those off real quick. I didn't get a chance to do that earlier. But the homeless encampment is still up downtown. And, apart from just fighting off these horrible ordinances, they're also trying to make sure that some of their demands get met. Where was it? DuckDuckGo.
Well, very quickly, too, your music, Sista Mista, is still online.
That's true. Yeah.
SistaMista.bandcamp.com. Check that out.
Yeah. And there probably will be some newer stuff in the near future. Okay, yeah, there it is. But yeah, they're looking for supplies down at the Occupy camp. They could always use water, food. There's been an ask for books, to read during the day. Also, any sleeping bags or blankets would be very much appreciated. And their current demands for this ongoing protest, just so y'all know, a moratorium of enforcement on an ordinance preventing people from sleeping in parks until Kalamazoo provides adequate resources, sleeping from 9 p.m. to 7 a.m., and sleeping on paved surfaces, including the Rotary Stage in Bronson Park, is still technically a misdemeanor charge, $500 fine, and up to 90 days in jail. The removal of David Anderson from Kalamazoo County's Public Housing Commission. Anderson serves as chair. The group wants to replace him with someone who has had experience being homeless. An investigation into negligence and abuse at the Kalamazoo Gospel Mission, the construction of a secular shelter that provides access to housing vouchers and social services, and more affordable housing options for low-income residents. So,
all right, there you go. And as for me, you can find all my shit on my official website, garretschuelke.tumblr.com. And most recently, I released an EP called Live in Chicago. That's available for free on Bandcamp, YouTube, and Internet Archive, where you, dear listener, have probably listened to this podcast.
Yeah.
Because I'm too cheap to pay SoundCloud to put all my shit on there.
Yeah.
All right, folks, that's this show. Thanks again, Andy, for being on. Thanks again to Zach Elmblad for hosting.
Anytime.
Indeed, anytime. And thanks for KC for showing up last minute. It's always good to have you around, even in spirit.
Yes.
All right, folks. Till next time, we're out here. And here's the outro song.
respect to the wage slaves. You best make sure that we get paid. Cause if it comes even just a day late, your motherfucking sandwich won't get made.
Looked and looked for every job in town. Somehow you find us a restaurant run by a clown. So you pound an application at your nearest computer station. Get an interview with a manager named Stu. He asks, why'd you go and leave your last job? And have you ever ingested marijuana or beers? And where do you see yourself in 5 years? And you wonder what this has to do with flipping burgers. And the question's so stupid you want to commit murder. But you do the job and you need the money. So tell no jokes, Stu won't think it's funny. And answer his questions quite seriously. Even though they got you vexed quite deliriously. And smiling on for all the bullshit. Don't got the job yet and already you want to quit. They say they'll call you in just a few days. That piece of time goes by in a haze. Waiting by the phone for a job you don't want. Thinking you'd give it anything for something better to flaunt. You feel like a lamb being led to the slaughter. But a motherfucker wants more, just ramen and water.
Gotta give respect to the wage slaves. You best make sure that we get paid. Cause if it comes even just a day late, your motherfucking sandwich won't get made.
A job is a job, you go and tell yourself. But that's an idea you can put on the shelf. Cause one step in and you got shit to say. This is what happened to that motherfucker Dante. I'm convinced now of this very fact that the river Styx must be a giant fire vat. The grease will sink your hair, the grizz will burn your hands, even for those with the best laid plans. Creeping in your mind, you'll resign yourself to a fate of falling in head first and coming out two-faced. And even if the tools of the trade don't blow your shit, just wait until the shift manager starts to spit. Some orders in your direction with a mightier than thou inflection, and put your anger in detention with a warrantless condescension. Clean the grill shitty, now clean the make table too. Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, and fuck you!
Give respect to the wage slaves. You best make sure that we get paid. Cause if it comes even just a day late, your motherfucking sandwich won't get made.
It ain't the worst kind of job, but it's the most monotonous. The end of the day is like a touch of bliss. But here's another trick, the life will play on you. A burger jockey's a motherfucker no honey wants to screw. Cause you can split game from Marrakesh to ancient Crete. The bottom line is plain, you smell like rotten meat. Burger King and Mickey D's, the long John Silver. The story goes further than I can remember. People swallow their pride, hear managers bitch about make time, so they can go home and have a little bit of fake time. But watch yourselves, motherfuckers, don't push us too far. Cause we're the motherfuckers that pay for your car. Cause you can outsource the factories from India to China. But you need an elbow grease to run the burger joints and the diners. So remember that fact and don't give a shit. Or grab your ass and dip it into a fry pit. I am up to my neck in student loans for a master's degree in child psychology. Why the fuck am I working at McDonald's? Yeah, man, I'm in this band. Yeah, we're this electro pop group out of Chicago. Yeah, man, we got this video on YouTube. Swear to God, over 200,000 hits. So excited. But, you know, with all that, man, why is it that me and everybody else in my band has to work at McDonald's? Well, I worked myself at a factory for about 30-some years. Thought I'd retire out of that job. Well, then the layoffs came, and by the time they got to me, our severance packages were reduced about 70%. Now, a job is a job, and I'm glad to have one, but why the fuck does it have to be McDonald's?